We're back with Raine Hamilton. Their new album is Brave Land, and the song you just heard is It Matters. Raine, you are a Canadian, which means you come from a little bit of a different history than most of my listeners, but there is some major overlap in
Mhm.
terms of colonization and how police behave and how the color of your skin really seems to matter to them a lot more than it matters to most people. Can you describe for me some of the history that you're referring to on It Matters?
All right. So this song, It Matters, tells the story of something that happened to this really rad woman that I know in my hometown here of Winnipeg. And in Canada, this is Treaty One territory. So this is territory where Indigenous communities who were the first inhabitants of this land and the Canadian government made some agreements, which were later like totally disregarded by the government and really abused by the government. Anyways, but that's the land I'm on, is the Treaty One land. So this rad lady, Grandma Shingoose, and Grandma Shingoose, in like, you know, the way someone is everybody's auntie, grandma is everybody's grandma. So that's just like how she's known in the community. She is an Indigenous elder and an activist, and she posts a lot on Facebook. And so, like, that's how we stay in touch. Her and I, it's awesome. And I know her from being myself a non-Indigenous ally in that community. So I'm someone who is, you know, like just a white person on the land here, a settler person descended from the people who colonized this land, and I'm wanting to contribute definitely to reparation and restitution for the wrongs that have been done, and to make it right. And I'm someone who benefits for sure from the privilege of that situation I'm in as a white person on this land, and who benefits from the structures of colonization. And so I really want to do right. I want to use the power I have to do right. Anyways, Grandma Goose, totally rad. Our city is a hockey city. Like, I think like the things we know about Canada and hockey are true. And the Winnipeg Jets are the talk of the town a lot of the time. Uh, Years back, it was the first time they had made it into the playoffs, and like people were pumped. Grandma Shingoose, fully pumped. She's posting all the time, like about the Jets, like what's going to happen, how's let's be strategic here, and like who's her favorite player, what's going on here. She is like a huge fan. And the city couldn't fit everyone in the stadium to watch these games, and they would do this cool thing where they projected the game on like the side of a building, and people could watch in the street like simultaneously while it was happening. Super cute. Grandma Shingoose got a ticket to go to this event, and she showed up like wearing her jersey, Winnipeg Jets, like, and she that it was just very obvious to me that that's what she was there to do. And I know what she was wearing. I know what happened next because very bravely she filmed on her phone this interaction that followed. And what the video shows is the security approaching her. You know, you can't be here. You have to leave. And she is, you know, questioning, like, why would that be so? Why would that be so that I have to leave? She's standing on the sidewalk, by the way. Like, I cannot think of a more harmless behavior to do. And then police become involved. And then I watch these police escalate this total like a non-situation, to the point where they end up like grabbing her and removing her physically from that place. And it's awful what happened to her. And this is one example, of course, right, of like just so much stuff that happens all the time. um but they did that. They removed like this a grandmother, an Indigenous elder on her people's land, on her treaty land, harming no one, and they treated her in this way. And the impact that she describes from that experience is profound. So she is someone who survived Canada's system of residential schooling. So that system was around for a long time. And the Coles notes are that the Canadian government forcibly removed Indigenous children from their communities and took them often far away to boarding schools, residential schools, where they were religious, like the schools were religiously run. And there was a huge emphasis on, how can I even say this? It's a cultural genocide, what was done, a sincere attempt at one. And and she is a survivor of that system. So she attended residential school away from her family as a child in an abusive situation for many years of her childhood. And that's relevant to this story because when the police treated her that way, when they put their hands on her, she says that's the most trauma that she has experienced since that time in residential school. And she explains, like, it is connected because this is the government once again putting their hands on her, controlling her. And it is so connected, her experience in that like traumatizing, genocide attempting school system, and the harms of colonial history that her people have lived, right? Like the generational trauma that is passed down through her and through others like her. And it shows up in these moments when the police mistreat, when such disrespect is shown. And it's like a thread that is pulled through that history. And all of that history shows up so pointedly in that one experience for her. And that's what that song is about. Like that all that past experience, that the colonial history of this country matters now. It is relevant now. It is affecting people and harming people now. That's what's going on there. Grandma Shingu says, Raine, please play this song all over the place. I love it.
Good, good. I'm glad that she has a very unique way of fighting back against it. So it is important for everyone to learn that history
I agree. Yeah.
because they can change history better when they know it.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think it helps us to be compassionate to each other and to be kind.
Things are getting a little weird here in America.
Canada is experiencing also some weirdness.
Um, there's sort of this movement of right-wing parents who are trying to control what schools are allowed to teach.
Mm,
And there are two major categories of it. We're seeing one in Virginia where it's more about race, and you're not allowed to teach divisive history or
mm,
things that would make a student uncomfortable based on the color of their skin. The unwritten word there is white.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And you're seeing a different strain in Florida where they're trying more to focus on not mentioning gender identity or sexual
mm-hmm.
orientation in school. Oh, you can't say it. That's something for a parent to decide for your child, not for their for your child to learn about and decide. What do you think of that? And what's going on in Canada?
What do I think of that? Well, like critical race theory is totally important. Uh, and I, what I would say here, I think, is that I want to amplify voices of like people of color activists that I know. And widely, I've heard them saying like, hello, we are hurt by systemic racism. Hello, we are hurt by like the ways that society is perceiving race and is perpetuating racism. And I think it's important to listen first and foremost to the people who are harmed, who is on the receiving end of oppression. That's who gets listened to when there is a question like this about what is important and about what is made, like what is needed to be made right. So I am totally supporting the voices of people of color in this. That of course it is important to understand the context of like the broad racisms that exist like in governance and all of the systems, right? I think it's so important. And yeah, that critical race theory is a really important part of understanding that. So that's my thought there. And then gender identity, like, man, gender diversity just totally exists, doesn't it? And like it exists whether we know it, or that's not what I mean. It exists whether we talk about it, that's what I mean, or whether we don't talk about it. And I'm in favor of talking about it because we've seen in past generations the harm that has come from not talking about it. And I've read many a story um, of a young queer child, a gender queer child, feeling so ostracized and ashamed and alone for experiencing within themselves an identity that they could not express, that they could not name, and that they were correctly perceiving was dangerous to express in that context. Like there's many who have remained closeted or lived a life that is less fulfilling and vibrant and wonderful because of fear and shame and stigma around that. And sorry, my phone is making so many dinging noises. Let's just turn this off. No dinging. It's better, in my opinion, to have this talked about because it does exist. And if we are suppressing information about that, we are denying children, what are we denying them? Like safety, we are creating for them a really challenging personal situation. And it's just like, I want them to know. I want children to know that the world can be such like a bright and beautiful place, and that there is room for all of us, and that like who we are, I believe this, that who we are in our heart of hearts is beautiful, and it's like our job as individuals to show up and let our light shine. So that's what I want for those kids, is for to be allowed to let their light shine.
So, can you comprehend that there are places in America right now where discussing your song, It Matters, in a school building could bring about lawsuits, losses of jobs, all kinds of stuff like that?
Wow, you know what, that specific instance had not occurred to me. Wow.
Wow is absolutely right.
Yeah.
Well, keep getting the good stuff out there. Keep saying what needs to be said, and yeah, don't let any of those nut jobs tell you not to.
Thanks so much for talking today, Trevor. Right on.
Let's close out with one little note that always shows up in my interviews. I ask my guests to choose a song, and I always do a little category based on the album, based on what's been said. And for you, Rain, the category is a song that tells a history worth telling.
Trevor, I forgot to think of this. Give me a second.
Ah,
Hold on. A song that tells a history worth telling. It's gonna come. I totally forgot. I'm so sorry. Give me 30 seconds. Come on, brain. What about Bob Dylan? This is the story of the hurricane.
all
This is
right.
the story of the hurricane. Doo, 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 doo. Or like Four Dead in Ohio. Let's do the hurricane. Do
All right, Bob Dylan.
you want me to do a little blurb into it?
Sure.
All right, I've chosen the song Hurricane by Bob Dylan. My dad is like a Bob Dylan aficionado. I say, like, my dad knows more Bob Dylan songs than anyone else's dad, and that includes more than Bob Dylan's own children. Like, my dad just knows them all. And so this is one that I've heard my dad play many a time, and it tells an important story about racial justice.
And we have Charlie Backfish at the station, probably someone who could rival your dad. Always closes his show on a Bob Dylan song. So
Amazing choice.
I guess we're closing this interview on a Dylan song too. Charlie, Mr. Hamilton, we're making you proud, huh? Hurricane, Bob Dylan. Thanks so much for talking to me, Rain.
Thanks, Trevor.